Hello everyone, I am the Bandit Kirby. Welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander reprinted in Ravnica Remastered, Krenko Mob Boss. This video is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. You can pre-order your Ravnica Remastered product using my link in the description. That would really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. To see other cool folks who support my content, check out the description below. That also helps out the channel at no extra cost. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You can also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Krenko is a 3/3 Goblin Warrior for 2 generic and 2 red. You can tap him at instant speed in order to create an amount of 1/1 red Goblin creature tokens equal to the number of goblins you control. Naturally, you're going to have a Krenko helm a deck full of goblins. That being said, what I love most about Krenko is all the mathematical potential. Each time you tap him, you're essentially doubling the amount of goblins you have. Do this multiple times a turn, and things will get out of hand very quickly. Speaking of activating him multiple times, this is one of the main ways of amassing an almost innumerable goblin horde. Equipment like Illusionist Bracers and Battle Mage's Bracelers double his ability whenever you activate it. As a bonus, Battle Mage's Bracers gives haste, which is very important because Krenko will have a target on his back the moment you reveal him at the start of the game. Being able to set up your game first where you can protect him and or give him haste is crucial, but we'll see the rest of the haste enablers and protective effects later on. Aggravated Assault, Patriarch Seal, Staff of Domination, 1000-Year Elixir, Umbral Mantle, and Sword of the Power Runes allow us to activate Krenko multiple times by untapping him. Tapping him down is free, but with these effects we have to pay to untap him. While all of these have other very useful effects beyond just untapping Krenko, their main function is just that. As a bonus, 1000-Year Elixir allows us to activate Krenko as if he had haste, which makes it even better. The best thing about those is that some of them go infinite with infinite mana. Specifically, Aggravated Assault, Staff of Domination, Umbral Mantle, and Sword of the Power Runes. These can untap Krenko infinitely many times if we generated infinite mana. The deck does have a couple of ways to do so, but a combo win is not the main route of victory with this particular deck. Flamekin Village, Handwire Battlements, Hall of the Bandit Lord, Battlecry Goblin, Goblin Chieftain, and Ogre Battle Driver are included solely to give Krenko haste. Of the 3 lands, I would consider Hall of the Bandit Lord taking up a non-land slot, since using it for mana is quite detrimental to our health on top of entering tapped. The goblins here also function as Goblin Lords, but we'll see the rest of the lords later. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, apart from 1000-Year Elixir and Battle Mage's Bracer, are the best sources of haste for Krenko since these two also protect him from targeted removal. Champion's Helm and Mithril Coat also provide protection from targeted removal, and like the boots, are meant to be worn by Krenko. There really is no goblin more important than him in the deck, even though there are plenty of amazing goblins in it. Eldrazi Monument also provides indestructibility, but it does so for all of our creatures. It does require a sacrifice during our upkeep, but that's nothing to a token deck like this one. It's yet another source of global pump as well, which is the main route to victory of the deck. But we'll see the rest of the pump effects soon. Goblin Courigeon is another way to use fodder to protect our goblins, particularly Krenko. Nowadays, very few destroy effects have the can't be regenerated clause, meaning that as long as we have enough extra creatures, we can save Krenko from those effects that don't bury. Cavern of Souls is naturally included because the last thing we want is to spend 4 or more mana to attempt to cast Krenko, only to have him countered. Krenko is infamous, so blue players will always keep at least one counterspell up for him. Pyroblast, Red Elemental Blast, Tybalt's Trickery, Warping Wheel, and even Deflecting Swat are included to deal with counterspells. However, while both blasts can deal with blue counterspells as well as an Overloaded Cyclonic Rift, bane of all token decks, Deflecting Swat can also deal with counterspells if you use it to change the counterspell's target to itself, i.e. the Deflecting Swat. Tybalt's Trickery is essentially a Chaos Whip for spells, while Warping Wheel is something a lot of players don't expect. Most board wipes are sorceries, so being able to use it to counter a Wrath of God, Damnation, etc. can come in pretty clutch. The deck runs other sources of colorless mana like Ancient Tomb, Soul Ring, along with those found on utility lands, so you should be able to realistically cast Warping Wheel if it came down to it. Plus, these help cast an early Krenko, which is never a bad thing. Alright, so Krenko is hasty, protected, and can be activated multiple times a turn. What next? Well, we get started on that massive game-ending Goblin Horde. The best way to go about it is via tokens, just like our commander. Den of the Bugbear, Dragon Fodder, Goblin Instigator, Krenko's Command, Hurling Outburst, and you see a pair of goblins can all make goblin tokens. The land doesn't take up a spell slot, and the last card also functions as a pump spell if you have enough goblins but want to be able to get some last moment damage in. Yes, math is for blockers, but these goblins should at least know some basic arithmetic. Speaking of pumping our horde, apart from the previously mentioned Goblin Lords, the deck has Castle Embereth, Runevelt Hordemaster, Goblin King, Hobgoblin Bandit Lord, Shared Animosity, Goblin Trashmaster, and Coat of Arms, which do just that. Some of these are also useful, such as the Hordemaster providing impulsive draw whenever goblins we control die, the Bandit Lord dealing game-ending direct damage to an opponent's face if we created a ton of goblins that turn, and the Thrashmaster dealing with artifacts for free at instant speed. That being said, the best of these are still Shared Animosity and Coat of Arms. Just be careful with Coat of Arms and other creature subtype decks. Not to be overlooked, Goblin King giving Mountain Walk to our Goblin pairs amazingly with Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon. Both are in this deck. A lot of players might hate these cards, but you should always be running basics anyways. And in this situation, while these have the potential of locking greedy mana-based players out of the game, all Goblins having Mountain Walk has the potential of ending their existence anyways. Impact Tremors, Witty Roastmaster, and Perverse God of the Forge are included as alternate win cons. If we weren't able to win via combat for whatever reason, whether a stalemate, pillow fort effects, etc., we can deal damage to the whole table quite easily with the amount of goblins we're creating at any given time. Thrill of the Godfire can also be used for this purpose. If there were a player we couldn't attack into for whatever reason, ending the turn with a ton of tapped goblins will deal that much damage to all opponents. This card is amazing here. Valakut the Molten Pinnacle can also provide a slow burn whenever we play mountains, but it's included mostly because it's a bonus and doesn't take up a slot in the deck, especially since the deck is running 22 mountains. After all the utility land slots are taken, filling the rest of the deck with basic mountains helps a lot. With infinite Krenko activations, we could also win with those previously mentioned effects if our goblins didn't have haste. Then again, the best time to activate Krenko is always at the beginning of the end step before our turn, to remove that summoning sickness when we begin our turn. Skirk Prospector is one way of generating infinite red mana. If we had an effect that untapped Krenko for less mana than goblins to sacrifice, tapping Krenko will then create enough goblins to once again sacrifice and untap him. Since Krenko and the Prospector are goblins, they count, so you only need an extra amount of other goblins to go infinite. This chart tells you how many extra goblins you need before you tap Krenko the first time in order to create an amount of goblin tokens to sacrifice to the Prospector for enough red mana to untap Krenko. Keep in mind that this will not generate infinite tokens, only infinite Krenko activations, so this will kill the table with Impact Tremors, etc. In order to generate infinite tokens, you need one more to the amount of extra goblins needed. Without Summoning Sickness, this will end you the game. If you had something like Mock Catcher, you could abuse this combo, or just the untapping in general, to get whatever goblins you need right to the battlefield, including ones that give your now infinite goblins haste. Mock Catcher isn't the only tutor here either. Goblin Matron and Goblin Recruiter are also included. Whenever I play a Goblin deck, I always use the Matron to find the Recruiter, and then I stack all Goblins on the top of the library. But not to necessarily draw into them, but to cheat them out thanks to Mux's Goblin Grandee. If you put him first, you can draw into him and then cast him in order to get the next top 6 Goblins into play for free, assuming they have the appropriate mana value of course. Bonus points if you Mock Catcher Goblin Recruiter, untap it, then use Mock Catcher to cheat Muxus into play. While this is amazing card advantage, the deck still has actual card advantage effects like War Room, Idol of Oblivion, Symmetry Matrix, and Vanquisher's Banner. Goblin tokens tend to be 1/1s, and even if they're pumped, it's usually by power and toughness, so don't discount Symmetry Matrix. Speaking of pump, the banner has a pump effect as a bonus. Dark Dweller Oracle also provides card advantage via impulse draw, via mana and goblin fodder. Sometimes we can run out of steam, and this really helps us out by turning tapped goblins or extra goblins into cards we're looking for. Magus of the Wheel, Valakut Awakening, Wheel of Misfortune, and Reforge the Soul also provide card advantage via wheeling. Well, Valakut requires us to already have cards in order to make the most of it, but it doesn't really tack up a slot in the deck if you aren't greedy when you need that land drop. Jiski's Will also provides impulse draw, but with the bonus of also giving us mana if we control Krenko. This card is an all-star here regardless of the mode. Speaking of mana acceleration, Nykthos Shrine to Nyx does a ton of work here without taking up a spell slot. It also taps for colorless mana if needed for casting Warping Wheel. Ruby Medallion, Hazoret's Monument, and Goblin Warchief provide mana acceleration via cost reduction. The Monument has the added bonus of also looting us if need be, while the Warchief is yet another source of haste for our Goblin Horde and Krenko. Shattered Torch of Defiance, Koth of the Hammer, and Koth Fire of Resistance seem like odd choices in an aggro deck since it'd be hard to defend them without keeping up some goblins for chump blocking. but both of Challenger's +1 abilities are amazing here, providing Impulse Draw and Mana Acceleration. Both versions of Koth provide Mana Acceleration with their +1 ability, which is great here. Wayfarer's Bauble also provides Mana Acceleration via basic land-based ramp for cheap. The deck isn't that mana hungry, but we want Krenko out as soon as possible, and then enough mana to protect him or recast him. You could also just run Jeweled Lotus instead of Wayfarer's Bauble if you really want to go fast. Last but not least is the rest of the deck's interaction. Apart from those already shown, the deck is running Wild Magic Surge, Chaos Warp, and Guthrie Wright's History for targeted removal, along with Vandal Blast and Blasphemous Act as its board wipes. While it might seem counterintuitive for us to be the ones to cast Blasphemous Act, we have no guarantee of being the most overwhelming board on the table. Sometimes someone else is the arch enemy and needs their board removed. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Krenko Mog Boss. Yes, Krenko is an already established commander in the format, and there are literally hundreds of different ways to build him, depending on which goblins you want to include, what main and sub strategies you want to follow, etc. But hopefully I was able to showcase some ideas of my own for building a Krenko deck that can be useful to use. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the Brewers, for their patronage. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check the links in the description too, they really help out the channel. And to everyone else, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Medic Kirby, and happy brewing.